The Titanic is, without a shadow of a doubt, one of the most famous and tragic shipwrecks in human history. Even more than a century after its fateful maiden voyage, this ship continues to captivate people all over the world. What makes this tragedy even more intriguing are the unusual and curious details that have been discovered over the years, either through historical accounts or explorations in the depths of the ocean where the Titanic rests. Today, we will embark on a fascinating journey to explore 10 strange, surprising, and even bizarre things that were found on the Titanic or related to it. These findings range from curious objects to hidden secrets that few people know about. Prepare yourself to dive into a narrative full of mysteries, curiosities, and unexpected discoveries. This is a deep dive into the unknown, where every detail tells a unique story. The first strange item we will explore is a watch, but not just any watch. This object was found among the wreckage of the Titanic and carries with it a fascinating mystery that seems to have stopped in time. This watch, incredibly well-preserved, was in one of the ship's cabins and caught the attention of explorers for a peculiar detail. Its hands were frozen at exactly 2:20 a.m., the exact moment when the Titanic sank into the Atlantic Ocean. Although it is common for watches to stop working after years submerged in salt water, this particular case has something special. It seems to have captured, almost poetically, the exact instant when the fate of the Titanic was sealed. For many historians and enthusiasts, this watch is more than just an artifact. It symbolizes the abrupt end of an era marked by luxury and excessive confidence in human technology. Additionally, this finding makes us reflect on the emotional impact that the shipwreck had on the people aboard. Imagine how many different stories could have been happening at that exact moment while the watch hands stopped forever. The next strange item found on the Titanic is something that seems straight out of a novel. A silent piano, or rather, the remains of what was once a luxurious grand piano used by musicians on board to entertain passengers. This piano, located in the first-class lounge, was a central piece of the festivities aboard. It symbolized the glamour and sophistication that the Titanic promised to offer its wealthiest passengers. Although the piano was destroyed by the impact of the shipwreck and decades submerged in the icy waters of the Atlantic, parts of it were recovered during recent expeditions. Among these pieces are some worn keys and fragments of its main body. These fragments carry with them an emotional story. During the final hours of the Titanic, as the ship was sinking, the musicians continued to play in an attempt to calm the panicked passengers. This transformed the piano into a symbol of courage and humanity. The story of the Titanic's musicians is one of the most moving of the tragedy. They played until the end, choosing to sacrifice their lives to provide comfort to others. The piano, therefore, is not just an object but a representation of human heroism. Among the most emotional items found on the Titanic, there is something that deeply touches the human heart: a handwritten love letter. This incredible historical treasure carries with it a story of romance and tragedy. The letter was found among the wreckage and personal belongings recovered from the bottom of the ocean. Despite being submerged for decades, it was surprisingly well preserved, thanks to the unique conditions of the environment where the Titanic rests. Written on high-quality paper, typical of the time, the letter was addressed to the passenger's wife, who had stayed on land while he boarded the Titanic in search of new opportunities. In the author's words, we perceive a mix of longing, hope, and concern. He describes his love for his wife, promising to return to her as soon as his journey ended. Unfortunately, this promise could never be fulfilled. The text of the letter is full of intimate details, such as references to the memories they shared together and the dreams they had for the future. It is impossible to read these words without feeling a pang in your heart, knowing the tragic fate that awaited the author. Among the most unexpected items found on the Titanic, there is something that seems straight out of a fairy tale: a teddy bear. This simple toy, but loaded with meaning, was recovered from the wreckage and carries with it an emotional story. The teddy bear belonged to a child in third class, one of the many passengers who boarded the Titanic in search of a better life. Despite their humble origins, this toy was a symbol of comfort and security for the child. Made of soft fabric and stuffed with simple materials, the teddy bear was in surprisingly good condition when it was found. It had been protected by layers of mud and sediment at the bottom of the ocean, which helped preserve it over the years. For the children aboard the Titanic, toys like this were a way to escape the harsh reality of sea travel. They provided moments of joy and distraction, especially on such a long and uncertain journey. Interestingly, the teddy bear also makes us reflect on the differences between social classes aboard the Titanic. While children in first class had access to elaborate and luxurious toys, those in third class valued simple items like this teddy bear. The next strange item found on the Titanic is something that seems straight out of a movie scene. A chess set. This seemingly simple object carries with it a fascinating story that reflects the complexities of life aboard the ship. The chess set was discovered among the wreckage during a recent expedition. It was partially preserved, with some pieces still intact and others worn down by time and the pressure of the deep waters. Made of wood and ivory, this set was clearly intended for first-class passengers, who had access to luxurious and elaborate items. However, its presence on the Titanic reveals more than just social status. For many passengers, playing chess was a way to pass the time during the long journey. It was also a way to exercise the mind and enjoy moments of leisure in such a grand environment as the Titanic. Curiously, some historians suggest that the game may have been used by passengers to discuss business strategies, or even to plan their lives after arriving in the United States. This adds an intriguing layer to the meaning of this object. During the final hours of the Titanic, while chaos took over the ship, it is possible to imagine that someone tried to use the game as a form of distraction or comfort. Perhaps it was left aside when the reality of the situation became undeniable. Among the most unusual items found on the Titanic, there is something that seems almost magical: a perfume bottle. This delicate object, which carries with it a fragrance that resisted time and tragedy, is one of the most intriguing discoveries made in the wreckage. The bottle was found in an impressive state of preservation, considering the extreme conditions at the bottom of the ocean. It belonged to a first-class passenger, a businessman in the cosmetics industry who was traveling to New York with the goal of expanding his business. Made of cut glass and with an elegant design, the bottle was a unique piece that reflected the luxury and sophistication of the era. Despite being submerged for more than a century, traces of the original perfume were still identifiable inside it. For the explorers who found the bottle, this was an exciting discovery. They described the moment as if they were touching the past directly, feeling the weight of the history that this small piece carried. Interestingly, the perfume found in the bottle still had a faint perceptible aroma, although it had been altered by time and exposure to salt water. This unique detail transformed the discovery into a true historical treasure. The next strange item found on the Titanic is something that seems straight out of a historical novel: a diary. This incredible object was recovered from the wreckage and contains notes made by a passenger during the fateful voyage. The diary belonged to a young writer and journalist traveling in second class. He had the habit of recording his daily observations and reflections, and the Titanic was the perfect setting for his narratives. Although part of the diary was damaged by water and time, some pages survived and were carefully restored. These pages offer a unique glimpse into life aboard the Titanic before the tragedy. In his notes, the young man described the ship's luxury, the excitement of the passengers, and even details about the meals served in the dining room. He wrote, "This ship is a marvel of human engineering, a true floating palace." Interestingly, in his last entries, he expressed concern about the icebergs mentioned by the crew and the speed of the Titanic. These observations add a poignant layer to the story, as we know the tragic fate that awaited him. Among the most intriguing items found on the Titanic, there is something that seems straight out of a mystery movie plot: an old painting. This object, almost mythical in its origin, was recovered from the wreckage and carries with it a story full of secrets. The painting, hand-painted on a small canvas, depicts a bucolic scene with human figures and pastoral landscapes. Despite decades submerged, it was surprisingly well preserved, thanks to the unique conditions at the bottom of the ocean. Interestingly, no one knows for sure who the artist was or the purpose of this painting aboard the Titanic. Some historians suggest it may have been part of a wealthy passenger's private collection, while others believe it was simply a personal keepsake. For many people, the painting is more than a work of art. It is a symbol of human fragility. Its presence on the Titanic makes us reflect on how seemingly simple objects can acquire profound meanings when associated with historical events. During the final hours of the shipwreck, the painting may have been left behind by its owner, perhaps in the rush and chaos of trying to reach the lifeboats. This idea adds a layer of melancholy to its story. Our 10th and final strange item found on the Titanic is something that seems straight out of an adventure movie plot: a forgotten safe. This mysterious object was discovered during a recent expedition and carries with it secrets that intrigue to this day. The safe, made of strong metal, was located in one of the deepest areas of the Titanic's wreckage. Despite decades submerged, it was surprisingly intact, protected by mud and sediments at the bottom of the ocean. When the explorers managed to open the safe, they found a series of curious items inside: jewelry, personal documents, and even some ancient coins. These objects were clues to a life tragically interrupted. Interestingly, among the items was an engagement ring engraved with the initials EM and JP. This raised questions about who these people were and what the story behind this special gift was. For historians, this safe is more than just an object. It is a time capsule that allows us to glimpse fragments of someone's life who boarded the Titanic with dreams and plans for the future.